رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الحجة ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين إلى قيام يوم الدين. آمين رب العالمين. Amma ba'd. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. 13th of Jamad al-Thani, a date which is recorded by historians that marks the martyrdom of Sayeda Baneen alayha salam. Sayeda, in her own accord and in her own respect, Siddiqa and Tahira, the mother of Mawlana Abul Fadl al-Abbas salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. For in honor of Sayeda Baneen, you find that there is an obligation upon the entire Muslim Ummah to seek ma'rifah of individuals outside of the parameters of the 14 ma'asumeen. 14 ma'asumeen in the sense of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Sayyidati Nisa'il Alameen alayha salam, and the 12 Imams. Outside of these 14 ma'asumeen, there are personalities who have attained the daraja and the position of isma, infallibility. And scholars of theology will differentiate between Ismat al-Kubra, which is exclusive to the 14 individuals or 14 personalities of the Holy Household, and Ismat al-Sughra for those who are within the proximity or the wider parameter of Isma. And this bahath, or understanding this concept and the variances within this concept, is outside the scope of tonight's majlis. But what is sufficient and what is necessary for us to understand is our responsibility towards personalities such as Sayeda Baneen in regards to seeking ma'rifah of her status. Her status in its entirety cannot be comprehended, cannot be understood. But embarking on this journey of the ma'rifah of Sayyida Baneen is a journey in itself. And this journey of ma'rifah, the entire conclusion or the summary is that Sayyida Baneen alayha salam in essence was a manifestation of the teachings of the Quran itself. Sayyida Baneen alayha salam, a manifestation of the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala contained within the Quran. And to substantiate this claim, you find that we refer back to the Quran as a starting point to gain ma'rifah of Sayyida Baneen alayha salam. Ikhwani, these are words that are extremely heavy and weighty in their consequences for the one who contemplates over this. In order to seek the ma'rifah of Sayyida Baneen, or to seek a glimpse of the ma'rifah in regards to the adamah of Sayyida Baneen alayha salam, in order for us to understand this, the starting point is the kalam and the wahi of Allah Azza wa Jal through the Quran. Shufu, ayah of the Holy Quran where Surah Al-Nahl verse number 91. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa awfu bi ahdillah idha ahadtum, wa la tanqudhu al-ayman ba'da tawkidiha, wa qad ja'altum Allah alaykum kafila. Tafsir of this verse, first to start with a very loose translation, وَأَوْفُوا بِأَحْدِ اللَّهِ إِذَا أَحَدْتُمْ, and uphold the covenant that you have taken from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Awfu, from the word, or one of the derivatives, is the word wafa, be loyal, uphold the covenant that you have made with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَا تَنْقُضُوا الْأَيْمَانَ بَعْدَ تَوْكِيدِهَا, and do not go upon this covenant, do not break this promise that you have taken with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after its establishment. وَقَدْ جَعَلْتُمُ اللَّهَ عَلَيْكُمْ كَفِيلًا, do not break and do not violate the sanctity of the covenant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is witness over you. So you find that the command tense in this verse is وَأَوْفُوا بِعَهْدِ اللَّهِ, and uphold the covenant that you have taken with Allah. Tayyib, what is the covenant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Ahdillah. What is this covenant that the believers have been commanded to uphold, this covenant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? With me I have Tafsir al-Safi, Tafsir of the Quran known as Tafsir al-Safi. The author Mullah Fayd al-Kashani rahmatullah alayh, and in the footnote for the tafsir of this verse, he narrates from Al-Kafi and from Tafsir al-Qummi. Kitab al-Kafi authored during the time of Ghaybat al-Sughra, and Tafsir al-Qummi, one of our most reliable and authentic tafasir of the Holy Quran by way of hadith of Ahlul Bayt. Both of them, Sheikh al-Kulayni rahmatullah alayh and Sheikh al-Qummi, in his tafsir, return back to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. Imam al-Sadiq's explanation and tafsir in regards to this verse. He says, لما نزلت ولاية علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام وكان من قول رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد سلموا على علي بإمرة المؤمنين فكان مما أكد الله عليهم في ذلك اليوم قول رسول الله لهما قوما فسلما عليه بإمرة المؤمنين فقالا أمن الله أو من رسوله فقال رسول الله من الله ومن رسوله. The verse goes on to say that this verse of the Holy Quran was revealed in regards to, or this verse of the Holy Quran is a reference in regards to the revelation of the wilaya of Maulana Amirul Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. And Rasulullah commanded everyone to greet Amirul Mu'mineen through the title, to greet Imam Ali through the title Amirul Mu'mineen. Amirul Mu'mineen yani prince, prince of the believers. Amirul Mu'mineen yani master of the believers. فكان مما أكد الله عليهم في ذلك اليوم قول رسول الله لهما. For Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to these two people, the first and the second, establishers of the madrasa of Saqifa la'anatullahi alayhima. Rasulullah said to them, Kuma, stand up. فَسَلِّمَ عَلَيْهِ بِإِمْرَةِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Go to Amirul Mu'mineen and greet him as being the master of all believers. فَقَالَا, both of them, the first and the second, they said to Rasulullah, أَمِنَ اللَّهِ أَوْ مِنَ رَسُولِهِ. This command of accepting the mastership of Amirul Mu'mineen, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, the two people, they said to Rasulullah, is this from you or is this from Allah? It is as if they never read the verse of the Holy Quran. وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. He does not speak, Rasulullah, except out of revelation. فَقَالَ Rasulullah, this is a command from Allah and its Prophet. The command of Allah is the command of the Prophet. The command of the Prophet is the command of Allah. And then the following or the completion of this verse, which is the last part. وَلَا تَنْقُضُوا الْأَيْمَانَ بَعْدَ تَوْكِيدِهَا. Do not go against the covenant and the pledge that you have made to Allah. طيب. If you understand this, then we are able to understand through the words of Maulana Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh, that the covenant of Allah, ahdillah, the covenant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which we have been commanded to uphold, is none other than the wilaya of Maulana Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Look at this, it's a command tense. Wa awfu, uphold, command tense. Uphold the covenant of Allah. Yani uphold the wilaya of Amirul Mu'mineen. And the wilaya of Amirul Mu'mineen, wilaya of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. And from here, Ahibba'i, you are able to understand the azama of Sayeda Baneen, the mother of Imam Abbas alayhi salam, in regards to being a manifestation of the Quran when it comes to upholding the wilaya of Ali Muhammad. The entire life of Sayeda Baneen was dedicated to upholding the wilaya of Ali Muhammad. Look at this one example. The historians mention that in regards to the manner in which Sayeda Baneen brought up Maulana Abul Fadl al-Abbas. The historians mention that Sayyida Baneen alayha salam commanded her son Abul Fadl al-Abbas, and she would say to him, "O Abbas, do not ever refer to Imamain al-Hassani wal-Hussein. Never refer to them as your brothers. Rather, you should refer to them as your master. Never say to them, Ya Akhi, but refer to them as Ya Mawlai or Ya Sayyidi." And this is a command that Abul Fadl al-Abbas, Imam al-Abbas alayhi salam, Qamar Bani Hashim, held until the end of his life. You will never find in the books of history that Maulana Abul Fadl al-Abbas ever referred to Imam Hasan al-Mujtaba by saying Ya Akhi. Rather, he referred to him as Ya Sayyidi wa Ya Mawlai. And the same thing in the life of Imam al-Hussein. Before Karbala and during Karbala, Qamar Bani Hashim, Maulana Abul Fadil never referred to Imam al-Hussein with the words, "Oh my brother, Ya Akhi." He would say to him, "Ya Sayyidi, Ya Mawlai," until the end of his life. Which is why the Maqtal says, when the La'in struck Abul Fadil with a tent pole, فَضَرَبَهُ اللَّعِينَ بِالْعَمُودِ عَلَى رَأْسِهِ. When both his hands were severed and he is on his horse, La'in came and struck Abul Fadil with a tent pole at the back of his head. فَضَرَبَهُ اللَّعِينَ بِالْعَمُودِ عَلَى رَأْسِهِ فَفَلَكَ حَامَّتُهُ. The effect of the strike was such that it crushed open the skull of Maulana Abul Fadil. He falls down from the horse and he says, وَعَلَيْكَ السَّلَامُ عَلَيْكَ مِنِّي السَّلَامُ يَا مَوْلَايَ يَا أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ. Peace be upon you, O my master. My final salams, my master. It didn't say Ya Akhi. It is only when Sayyid al-Shuhadah came running to Abul Fadl Abbas and he showed the state of Qamar Bani Hashim. Imam al-Hussein puts the blessed head of Abul Fadl on his laps, and from the conversation that they have, Imam al-Hussein says to him, "Oh my brother Abbas, once in my life, call me brother." Hay tarbiyah. This tarbiyah in what you see, the fada'il of Maulana Abul Fadl al-Abbas, the fada'il of Maulana Abul Fadl al-Abbas is an attestation and a reflection of the tarbiyah that Sayyida Baneen gave him. The tarbiyah of Sayyida Baneen is reflected in the fada'il of Maulana Abul Fadl al-Abbas. This tarbiyah began, and this daraja begins this from the tarbiyah that Sayyida Baneen gave to Abul Fadil. Do not ever refer to him as your brother, but refer to him as your master. Such that the historians narrate that Abul Fadil never sat while the Imamain, Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Hussein sat. He would stand. And if he was to sit while they were seated, Abul Fadil would sit like a slave in front of the master with the head bowed down. Loyalty, respect, and wilaya to the highest degree. Such that the historians mention on the night of her marriage, and Sayyida Baneen is brought to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen. She says to her family, "Wait, Ajib. She says to her family, wait, and I shall not enter this house unless I am accepted as a servant of the house. To Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, Sayeda Zainab, and Sayeda Kulthum. This was not just merely physical servitude inside of a house. La, it was an understanding of the maqam of the household. This is the household of Tahara and the household of Isma, the household upon which Ayat Tathir circumambulates. I am entering into this household. And there has to be acceptance from these individuals who are the axis through which the entire universe functions. Sayeda Baneen understood this. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ سَمَاءً مَبْنِيًّا وَلَا أَرْضًا مَدْحِيًّا وَلَا قَمَرًا مُنِيرًا, until the house of Tathira, she entering into the house of Tathira. And the narrations mention, the historians mention, that she entered into the house and she sought permission to be a servant of Ahlul Bayt and the cause of Ahlul Bayt. And she raised children in this path. And within this Ahibba'i, there is a great message. The marriage of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam to Sayyida al-Baneen. شوفوا what the historians mention in regards to Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam seeking the hand of Sayyida al-Baneen in marriage. The historians mention this is Abul Fadil, this is Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam seeking a spouse, yani seeking the hand of Sayyida al-Baneen. What did he say to his brother? When he said, Amir al-Mu'mineen said to his brother Aqil, find for me a suitable woman that I would be able to marry. Look at what Amir al-Mu'mineen says to his brother Aqil. وَإِسْتَدْعَ الْإِمَامُ أَخَاهُ عَقِيلًا لِإِلْمِهِ بِأَنْسَابِ الْعَرَبِ. Amir al-Mu'mineen was searching for a spouse, so he called upon his brother Aqil, because Aqil was knowledgeable in genealogy. And there is a reason why an Imam who has ilmul manaya, ilmul balaya, everything ilmul ghayb the Imam has, but despite this he calls Aqil. There is a hikmah in this. In any case, he calls Aqil and he says to him, استطلع لي أحوال العرب وانظر أيها أشجع. Look into the tribes and the families of the Arabs, for I seek a woman with particular qualities. أيها أشجع. Find for me the tribe or the family that is known for its courage, the most courageous of families. لأني why؟ لأني أريد مصاحرته ليولد لي ولد شجاع يكون ناصرا لولدي الحسين. Find for me a woman from a family of valor, strength, and courage, for indeed through this marriage I want to conceive a son who will be courageous, Nasiran liwaladi al-Hussein, who will be a helper for my son Hussein, يعني on the day of Karbala, on the day of Ashura. شوفوا أحبائي, you and I, we say Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, we are Shia, we are the lovers, we are the followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen meaning what? That the actions of Amir al-Mu'mineen are actions that we attempt in our lives to emulate. The way Amir al-Mu'mineen dressed, the way Amir al-Mu'mineen sat, the teachings of Amir al-Mu'mineen, how to eat, what to eat, when to eat, how to pray, what du'as to recite, everything we emulate, we learn from Amir al-Mu'mineen. We place him as a role model to the best of our abilities, whom we try to emulate. Sahilola. Same thing when it comes to understanding the goal of marriage and the tarbiyah that needs to be given to children. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, in his lifetime, if he sought a marriage and the goal of that marriage was to seek or to conceive a child who would then be a helper to Imam al-Hussein, then you and I have to follow in this example of Amir al-Mu'mineen, such that within our own marriages, one of the goals of the marriage is that we are able to bring forward offspring who are from the helpers of Imam al-Hussein. Number two, on the other side, this is a lesson from the seerah of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Ikhwani, brothers, sisters, the goal of marriage. Number two, tarbiyah of children. For those who are blessed with children, tarbiyah of the children. Amir al-Mu'mineen had a goal from day one, before the conception of a child, that they has to be a helper of Imam al-Hussein. And similarly for you and I, the tarbiyah of our children, the manhaj or the program that we have for our child, the manner in which they will grow up, the values and the ethics and the moral codes of conducts that they will possess, and that you as a mother and a father will instill inside of them, ensure that Nusrat al-Hussein, servitude towards Imam al-Hussein, is a part of the tarbiyah of your children, of our children. This is the lesson from what we are able to deduce from Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam and the life of Sayeda Baneen. You and I, we have to ask ourselves, particularly in this day and age, as true Aqidah and the Wilayah, with the passing of time, becomes more and more diluted. What is our responsibility towards Imam al-Hussein through the tarbiyah of our children? Amir al-Mu'mineen says, I must have a child who is a supporter of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Similarly with us, the right tarbiyah, the pure tarbiyah, the tarbiyah expected from Ahlul Bayt that we will give to our children entails that in every family we have children who are born to love and to serve Sayeda Shahadah. One child to be a Khatib, one child to be a Nawha Khan, one child to be a Radud, one child to be a writer and propagate the ilm of Ahlul Bayt. Ayatollah Marhum Mujaddid Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Hussein al-Shirazi Rahmatullah alayh, Marja Taqreed, in his biography it is written that when he planned to conceive his first child, his eldest son, who also passed away under mysterious circumstances in the city of Qom, Marhum Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Rida al-Shirazi, rahmatullah alayhi, the father, Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Hussein al-Shirazi, this is in his biography, it is recorded that when they planned to conceive his first child, he was then in the city of Karbala al-Muqaddas, 40 days before conception. He recited the Ziyarat Ashura and performed the Ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam and made another, Ya Aba Abdullah, I seek a child from Allah through you, and if you grant me this child, he shall be but your servant. 40 days Ziyarat Ashura, 40 days Ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. They were blessed with a son who in his life became a mujtahid and a servant from the servants of Ahlul Bayt. Lectures and dedication in terms of Karbala, Imam al-Hussein and this deen. It would not be an exaggeration to say that millions of Shia, millions of people, Shia and non-Shia, were inspired and their connection with Ahlul Bayt was reinvigorated due to the efforts and the barakah of this one person. Tarbiyah. Which is why you have Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajjal faraja. And one of the hadith where he says, Allimu awladakum thalatha khisalin. Teach your children, ingrain inside of your children 3 etiquettes. Hubbu nabiyyikum, the love of your prophet. Love of your prophet. Hubbu ahli baytih, the love of the Ahlul Bayt. Wa qira'at al-Quran. And number 3, the recitation of the Quran. Teach your children to be madly in love with Rasulullah and with Ahlul Bayt. Surprisingly, you find within the Quran, in Surah Al-Abasa, the 30th juz, you will find this surah speak about the scenario on the Day of Judgment. And the verse of the Quran goes along the lines to say, this is the day that the father or a person, the human being, every man shall run away from his brother. And man shall run away from his brother. The father will run away from the children. The children will run away from the parents, and the husband will run away from the wife, and so on and so forth. And you find in the tafsir of the Quran, when you think about, you read about this, you find within the tafsir of the Quran, why would the parents run away from their children on the Day of Judgment? The children will run behind their parents and they will hold them responsible in front of Allah Azza wa Jal. These two, they did not teach me the value of Ahlul Bayt in the dunya. Ya Allah, if they taught me about Ahlul Bayt, I would have lived a life of spiritual bliss in the dunya. Ya Allah, if they taught me about Ahlul Bayt, I would have them to do shafa'ah for me today. They denied me success in the dunya and in the akhirah by not taking the time to ingrain the love of Ahlul Bayt inside of me. Refer back to the Quran. Surah Al-Abasa. The life of Sayeda Baneen alayhi salam is a madrasa in regards to how servitude and wilayah towards Ahlul Bayt should be manifest. Kalam here is a lot, and perhaps inshallah we have another opportunity in regards to the Majlis of Sayeda Baneen. We have an opportunity to speak about other aspects of her life. For Sayeda Baneen to give up four of her children, who she raised and she nourished with all her love and all her effort, her entire life effort in raising these four shining stars, these four lions, and from the lion of all lions, Maulana Abul Fadl Abbas. She gave it up in the way of Imam al-Hussein. وَأَوْفُوا بِعَهْدِ اللَّهِ. Because when it came to upholding the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, even if it meant sacrificing her four children, she would not hesitate. And for this reason, Allah Azza wa Jal has given Sayyida Baneen a maqam that very few from the awliya of Allah Azza wa Jal have. The Sayyida Baneen, because of her sacrifice, she has become this unmatched and unparalleled wasila of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through which or through whom millions upon millions of people's hajat are accepted. This wasiya, this wasila afwan, through whom millions and millions of people are cured from sickness. This wasila of Allah, through whom people have done her tawassul, and difficulties of the dunya have been erased in the blink of an eye. A status granted to her by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the sacrifice that she gave in the way of Imam al-Hussein, and the tarbiyah of the children that she raised, who were martyrs and raised and lay their lives in front of Imam al-Hussein without hesitating for the blink of an eye. Which is why the narrations mention that when Bashir came back to Karbala to inform the dwellers of Medina on the martyrdom of Aba Abdullah, he came to Sayyida Baneen and he said to her, O Sayyida Baneen, I convey to you my condolences upon the martyrdom of your son Abdullah. Sayyida Baneen, four children she had who were shaheed in Karbala: Abdullah, Uthman, Ja'far, and Abu Fadl. And her son was named Uthman by Amir al-Mu'mineen in honor of the companion of Rasulullah by the name of Uthman ibn Mad'un. He comes to her and he says to her, O Sayyida Baneen, our condolences to you upon the martyrdom of your son, upon the martyrdom of your son Abdullah. She says to him, do not tell me about Abdullah, tell me about my master Aba Abdullah. But she says to her, O Baneen, my condolences to you upon the martyrdom of your son Uthman. Shayyida Baneen says, do not tell me about Uthman, tell me about my master Aba Abdullah. But she says to her, O Baneen, my condolences to you on the martyrdom of your son Ja'far. She says to him, do not tell me about Ja'far, tell me about the state of my master Aba Abdullah. Bashir did not know how to break the news to Sayyida Baneen on the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein. Which is why Bashir says to Sayyida Baneen, My condolences to you upon the martyrdom of your son Abba. Which is why when Sayeda Ummul Baneen heard that Abul Fadil was martyred, she fell down to the ground knowing that Imam al Hussein was safe and fine so long as Abul Fadil al Abbas was alive. She fell down to the ground upon hearing the martyrdom of Abba Abdullah, which is why the narrations mention that Sayyida Ummul Baneen would go to Jannatul Baki. Allah, Allah, this Jannatul Baki, take your heart to Jannatul Baki between Al Baki and Karbala, huh? On a night like this, Shahadah of Sayyida Ummul Baneen, but her graveyard is empty. Her grave does not have a kubba, the remains of a destroyed grave surrounded by nawasib till today. Aib it is on the Muslim Ummah that they cannot shed a tear at the grave of Sayyida Ummul Baneen on a night like the narrations mention that Sayyida Ummul Baneen would go to Jannatul Baqi and she would weep for Maulana Abul Fadl al-Abbas and she would weep for Aba Abdullah and the martyrs of Karbala. Sayyida Ummul Baneen would weep there and revive the tragedies of the manner in which the Imam Zaman of her time was martyred, beheaded, his body trampled upon on the plains of Karbala. In honor of Sayyida Ummul Baneen, the tarbiyah of Maulana Abul Fadil. Huh? I recount for you the ending moments of the life of Maulana Abul Fadl al-Abbas. The narrations mention that when Abul Fadl was in the battlefield, Imam al-Hussein was standing at the door of the Khaymaga, surrounded by the children of Ali Muhammad, all of them crying out, Al-Atash, Al-Atash. They were holding their bowls and their cups in their little hands. Their lips were dried. Their lips were dried out due to the intensity of the heat and the intensity of the thirst. All of them waiting for their Uncle Abbas to return from the Forat with water. Because of the distance between the Forat and the Khaymaga, they would watch the bath, they would know the distance of Abul Fadil by looking at the flag, which is why the historians mention that when the flag went down for the first time, Abul Fadil, when the flag went down for the first time, Imam al Hussein became restless, and after a few moments, the flag went up. A few moments later, the flag went down. Allah, Allah. This time, the distress on the face of Imam al Hussein was apparent. For a third time, the flag went up. Ahibai, do you know why the flag went up and down? The first time the flag fell is because the right hand of Abul Fadil was severed. The second time the flag fell is because the left arm of Abul Fadil was severed. The third time the flag went up, the historians mention that Abul Fadil was balancing the flag between the chest and what was remaining from his arms. At that moment, when the La'in came and struck Abul Fadil with a tent pole at the back of his head, Abul Fadil fell off the horse. The flag fell down. The children were looking eagerly from the Khaymaga. Twice or thrice the flag came up, but this time they didn't see the flag come up. Instead, they heard the cry of Abul Fadil, Alayka minni salam, Ya Aba Abdullah. The cry of Abul Fadil, peace be upon you, O my master, O Aba Abdullah. When Imam al Hussein heard the cry of his brother Abul Fadil, he put his hand on his back and he cried out, Al-an inkasara dhahri. Now my back is broken. with the cry of Abbas. The historians mention that Imam al-Hussein went running towards Abu al-Fadl. For every 2 or 3 steps Imam al-Hussein would take, he would fall down on the plains of Karbala. He would stand up, he would run out another 2, 3 steps, and he would fall back on the ground, his hand on his back. Truly, 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 the back of Imam al-Hussein is broken. The narrations mention that as Imam al-Hussein ran towards Abu al-Fadl, he kept running and then he noticed something on the plains of Karbala. Imam al-Hussein threw himself on the plains. The narrator mentions that I went a little bit closer. I saw Imam al-Hussein pick something from the plains of Karbala. He wiped out the sand from it, and then he put it on his forehead and he kissed it. The narrator mentions, the Rawi mentions, I wonder what Imam al-Hussein would have found on the plains of Karbala, especially when he was running towards Al-Abbas. The Rawi mentions, I went a little bit closer and I see Imam al-Hussein holding one of the severed arms of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Allah, Allah. Imam al-Hussein in this state runs and reaches Abu al-Fadl. He sees him laying on the plains of Karbala without any arms, covered in blood, and an arrow in his eye. Imam al-Hussein sits down by Abu al-Fadl. He takes the head very gently. Imam al-Hussein kisses Abu al-Fadl on the forehead. He wipes out the blood from the second eye. Imam al-Abbas opens his eyes. He looks at his brother Imam al-Hussein. Sayeda Shahadah says to him, "Oh my brother Abul Fadl, what did the enemies do to you out of hatred for us?" Allah, Allah. Imam al-Hussein says to him, "O Abul Fadl, O my brother Abbas, for one time, refer to me as your brother and not as my master. Allah, Allah." The conversation continues between Imam al-Hussein and Abu al-Fadl until Abu al-Fadl removes his head from the laps of Imam al-Hussein. Allah, Allah. Imam al-Hussein takes the head of Abu al-Fadl. He puts it back on his lap. Imam al-Abbas removes his head again from the laps of Sayeda Shuhada. Ahibba'i, here you see the tarbiyah of Sayyida Baneen, huh? A third time, Imam al-Hussein puts the head of Abu al-Fadil on his lap. He says to him, "Oh my brother Abbas, why is it that every time I put your head on my lap, you remove it and place it back on the sands of Karbala?" Imam Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas looks at his brother Imam al-Hussein, and in the faintest of voices he says to him, "Oh my brother, you have my head on your lap during my dying moments, but who will place your head on their lap during your final moment, Ya Aba Abdullah?" Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. اللهم إنا نسألك بحق السيدة أم البنين اللهم عجل لولينا الفرج. We ask you, Ya Allah, by the sake of Sayyida al-Baneen, Ya Allah, hasten the reappearance of Maulana Sahib al-Amr. Ya Allah, by the sake of Sayyida al-Baneen, forgive us our sins on a night like this. Ya Allah, by the sake of Sayyida al-Baneen, Mu'mineen and Mu'minat in the east of the world and the west of the world who are not in the best of health, you grant them Shafa'ah, Ya Allah. Protect us and our family members, our friends, and those who are the lovers of Ali Muhammad from any type of ailment and sickness and disease in the body by the sake of Sayeda Baneen, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, by the sake of Sayeda Baneen, Marhumin and Marhumat, Mu'mineen and Mu'minat who have passed away, you elevate their statuses and make their graves into a garden from the gardens of Jannah. Ya Allah, by the sake of Sayyida Baneen, inspire us to become loyal, inspire us in our servitude towards Muhammad and Ali Muhammad. Ya Allah, by the sake of Sayyida Baneen, inspire us to have never-ending love for Ali Muhammad. Ya Allah, by the sake of Sayeda Baneen, protect our children and inspire our children with the love of Ali Muhammad and the love of Ahlul Bayt, and inspire them to be at the forefront for servitude towards Ahlul Bayt. Ya Allah, by the sake of Sayeda Baneen, Mu'mineen and Mu'minat who have hajat, do not anyone leave this Majlis al-Mubarakah until and unless you have fulfilled their hajat by the sake of Sayyida Baneen برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. يقول الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الحكيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرج ماتم حسين ماتم السيدة البنين.